All right, welcome. We are about to dive into this really radical idea from the Christian scriptures. It's this concept that one single principle, just one, could fulfill every moral law ever written. I mean, just imagine that for a second.
Really think about that. No more complicated rulebooks, right? No more endless lists of do this, don't do that. Just one thing. One single unifying command. So what could that possibly be?
And boom, there it is. The Apostle Paul, writing to the church in Galatia, says this one thing, loving your neighbor as yourself, is basically the master key. It unlocks and fulfills the entire law. That is such an incredibly simple yet, wow, profound statement.
Okay, so how on earth can one rule do the job of all the others? To really get how huge this is, we've got to look at the backstory. Because, this wasn't just some nice philosophical thought he had one day. Oh no, this was the final shot in a high-stakes theological war that was literally tearing the early church apart. Yeah, this simple little phrase, it landed like a total bombshell right in the middle of this massive debate. A debate about what it really means to follow Jesus, and it was forcing everyone to pick a side.
So this whole conflict was going down in a place called Galatia, and you've got two camps. In one corner, you've got the Apostle Paul fighting for what he called the purity of the gospel. And in the other corner, you have this group, people often call them the Judaizers, who were basically saying, hey, faith in Jesus is great, but it's not quite enough. They were insisting that new, non-Jewish believers also had to follow all the old Jewish customs.
So you end up with these two totally different equations for salvation. Paul's message was crystal clear. Jesus plus nothing equals everything. Simple. But the Judaizers, they were teaching a different math. Jesus plus things like circumcision, plus observing all the old ceremonial laws, that equals everything. See what they're doing? They're adding human effort back into the mix. And right at the heart of this whole thing is a fancy theological word, justification. But all it really means is being made right with God. And the big question was, how does that happen? Are you declared right just because of your faith, or is it your faith plus how well you can keep all the rules?
Well, Paul's argument carries the day. The conclusion was radical. Followers of Jesus are free from the burden of trying to keep the old law. But that immediately opens up a huge question, right? If you're free from all the rules, what's to stop you from just going wild? What is all this freedom for?
And this is where it all gets super practical. Paul basically says, look, this freedom isn't a free pass to do whatever you want. Not at all. It's freedom to love. And this kind of love completely flips the script on how we're supposed to react when people around us mess up, which brings us to this incredible idea, restoration, not condemnation.
Okay, so let's bring this down to earth. What do you actually do when someone you know, a friend, a family member, gets caught doing something wrong? When they're caught in a sin? What does this law of love actually require from you in that moment?
Paul doesn't leave us guessing. He lays out this clear, almost like a four-step process. First, okay, someone is caught in a failure. Second, he says those who are spiritual, and by that he means those who are actually led by God's Spirit, they have a job to do. Third, that job isn't to judge or to shame, it's to restore them. And fourth, and this is so important, it has to be done with a spirit of gentleness, not with any kind of arrogance. So the key takeaway here is just huge. The goal is reconciliation, not cancellation. In our world of public shaming and just cutting people off, this is a completely different way of doing things. It's about getting into the mess with someone, helping them carry that weight and gently guiding them back. And that, Paul says, is how you fulfill the law of Christ. But, okay, let's be real. How is that even possible? How can anyone have that kind of restorative love, especially when it's hard or when you've been the one who got hurt? Well, the argument is that this kind of love, you don't just generate it yourself. It's fueled by something much bigger, a deep, personal understanding of the unchanging love of God. I want you to think about your absolute best day. You know the one. The day you felt like you nailed it. You were kind, you were patient, you got everything done. You felt on top of the world. Okay. Now, think about your worst day. The day you just completely blew it. Maybe you were selfish. You said something you instantly regretted. You stumbled hard and just felt ashamed. Here's the core idea of this whole framework. On your best day and on your absolute worst day, God's love for you is exactly the same. It doesn't go up and down with your performance. And why is that? Because his view of you isn't based on your track record, it's based on Christ's. It's locked in, permanent.
So let's just follow that logic all the way. If God's love for you never changes because your standing with Him is based on Christ's perfection and not your own, then what happens when you fail? How much condemnation is actually left for you?
Zero. A big fat zero. According to the book of Romans, there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. It's gone. The idea is that all the condemnation you ever deserved was already poured out on Christ on the cross. It's finished.
You know, the great reformer Martin Luther had a really blunt way of putting this. He basically asked, what miserable works do you think you can do that you think you can please God more than the death of His own Son? I mean, what a question. The point is, there's nothing. Your best day doesn't add anything to what Christ has already done.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. We started with this one single law. We looked at the theological battle that made it so powerful, and we saw a super practical way to handle failure. It all comes together when we understand the true character of this love, and more importantly, where it comes from.
This right here, this is the engine of the whole system. The argument is that when you truly deeply get it, when you grasp that you are loved perfectly and unconditionally, even on your worst day, it just changes you. It frees you from being arrogant or self-righteous, and it fills you with this almost supernatural ability to give that same grace, that same restorative love to other people.
You know that famous love is patient, love is kind list from 1 Corinthians? What's so interesting is how we usually read it. We see it as a to-do list, right? A list of things we have to try really hard to be. But in this framework, you read it completely differently. First, it's a description of how God is towards you. He is patient with you. He is kind to you. He isn't irritable with you. We're able to show these things to others because they've been shown to us first.
And that, right there, is the bottom line. The command to love your neighbor isn't just another rule to follow by gritting your teeth and trying harder. No, it's presented as the natural, even supernatural overflow of first experiencing God's unconditional love for yourself. So we have to end with a challenge, because this isn't just some abstract idea, it's a call to action. If this is true, if you are truly loved without any conditions, who is one person in your life this week that you can show that same restorative, gentle, burden-bearing love to? The answer to that question, well, that could change everything.